have Fran Sparagna is doing our history. He's been doing the history for us since 2021 at all of our seminars, and he does just an amazing job capturing the past of our Doberman. And then I am going to do a portion of the seminar as well. I'm with Vicki, Seiler-Cushman, and then we have Nita Brannon, who will be doing the other portions.
Party girl.
The standard. So with that said, I'm going to welcome Fran, and he's going to tell you about the history of the Doberman.
Good morning. Normally I'm doing this for judges who aren't Doberman people, and they're trying to get their license, so we're trying to familiarize them with the breed. But you guys are a tougher group because you know stuff. Anyway, one other thing I want to mention: for 17 years, Sherry Holmes did this seminar, this part of the presentation, and unfortunately in 2021 disaster and her health has been affected, so she is unable to do it. She and Faye Strauss presented and developed the slide projection presentation. So I just need to give her a shout out and credit for it. Okay, Carl Friedrich Louis Doberman was born in 1823. If you look at Google, it says he was born in 1834, but everybody agrees he died in 1894. And he was a tax collector, a night watchman, and a dog catcher. Now, of the three, a tax collector in mid-1800s Germany was not a benign job. That was a guy who would go to people's farms. They owed money, they would take their property. They would take their prize cow, their prize bull, or they would throw people out of their property. And so he did not develop a lot of friends. And he determined, I need some protection. And so he, with his access as a dog catcher, he knew what kind of dogs that were the best kind. And it's probably, can we have the next slide? No, not that one. Back. That. Yes. Probably one. These were German Shepherd dogs, not the German Shepherd. And this was the typical dog that was in the fields in the place Apolda, where he was from, in the southern eastern Germany, called Thuringia. And so he started, and he got this dog Schnupp. And Schnupp was a nasty little guy who his Doberman son said that he was clever, fearless, and a good biter. And in agrarian Germany back then, that if you got bit by a dog, it was your fault. And we weren't living in suburban Philadelphia at the time. So. And he was a nasty dog, but he was loyal to Doberman. But he wasn't bred. He got a couple others that were similar to him, and he started breeding these dogs. And he was breeding for the temperament. He wasn't worried about type at all. He doesn't have any records, but we know that he was actually successful because he was charging as much as $50 a dog. Back in Germany in the mid-1800s, that was a lot of money. And they weren't called Dobermans. They were called Schnupp dogs or von Thuringian dogs. And he bred that temperament into the dog. And so you were getting layers and layers and layers of that biting, fearless, suspicious temperament. And he died in 1894. I don't know how long he bred. I doubt that he bred any dogs in the 1890s. However, later breeders, Otto Geller, for instance, who was the first president of the Doberman Pinscher Club of Germany, they got together and they developed the first standard in 1899. Okay, why don't we go to the next? All right. Oh, well, is that the Beauceron? They started experimenting. And they had this many different types of dogs: the German Shepherd, the smooth-haired pointer, the German Pinscher, the Greyhound, the Brew Great Dane, which is depicted earlier, the Black and Tan Terrier, and the Beauceron, which was a French dog. Now, how did a French dog get in southern Germany? If you recall, there was a Frenchman by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte who ran his army through Germany on his way to fight in Russia, and in the Franco-Russian Wars and the Franco-Prussian Wars. And he parked his army in southern Germany, and it was a record that he brought the Beauceron with him. And if you look at the Beauceron's headpiece, if that is, of all the dogs, that is the most similar to the Doberman, and it's got the elongated, wedge shape, and that is probably what they settled on in order to get what we have. Although they were still experimenting with breed type and for different other items, but essentially the concept of the dog was to be a geometric version of the nastiness of Schnupp. And, so what we got was the head to shoulder, shoulder to elbow, elbow to ground, forechest to rear, those kind of proportions and balance, although never really achieved, but that they were imposing that concept of performance dog with that kind of temperament. And it's the only one that developed, it's the only dog breed that developed as a personal protector and then developed into a performance dog as well. Let's go on. That is, I think that's a picture of Otto Geller with his Dobermans. Now, the problem is I think we missed a couple.
Okay.
See if you can go back. I wanted to show people the early Dobermans. No, okay, all right. The early Dobermans, somehow they're missing it, but that's okay. For the time being, let's go on. If you've seen pictures of them, you can look in Joanna Walker's book or Philip Grunig's book. You'll see that they didn't look anything like the dog of today. Oh, there's one.
Yeah, just past it.
That was one of the early experiments, and it's coming along, but it's a raggedy looking thing. It's sort of still shaggy. Oh, there you go. These two guys. I mean, they look like snapping demons from a haunted cemetery, right? But I think you can see the Rottweiler in there. But they were working on a dog again. They were trying to develop a type with the temperament, and so those were early experiments. Can we go on? There's another one. Certainly that would go best in breed somewhere. But go on. Okay, this dog is more approaching the type that they were looking for. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. Go on. Again, that looks like it has the Manchester Terrier, and the thing about the Manchester Terrier, the Black and Tan Terrier, is the markings and the close crop coat, which is what they wanted to put on there. Not its size, of course. Go on. That looks like the German Pinscher. And again, the close crop coat and the overall shape, but not quite the top line, but go on. Okay, now this dog is Fedor von Oprath. He's got some Manchester Terrier in him, but again, we're getting close to a dog that was approximating what we're looking for. Go on. They decided to put the Greyhound. This dog had Greyhound in him, and that's the reason why we get snipey heads, because I don't think that experiment worked out very well. Prince Modern von Ilmhafen. That dog is getting closer yet. He's almost 27 centimeters high, almost close to the standard, and we're getting. I mean, you see how terrier fronted he is, but we're getting to the overall shape. Go on. Yeah, this dog was bred in Holland in 1914. So this picture probably is 1.5 to 2 years later. Now, you got to remember how they showed these dogs back then. They didn't set them up. So they're baiting them, they're throwing them, making them lean forward. So if you were to set this dog up, you almost have a dog that is well laid back with a pretty decent top line. He looks like he has a little extra bit of rear, but you're getting closer and closer to what our Dobermans are today. Almost less than 20 years after they established the standard in 1899. Go on. This bitch was born in 1921, and again, that's close to what they were breeding for. And you got to remember, now we're getting into. You got to remember, history has a part to play in this. This is after World War I. Germany was devastated and was defeated. So now they got to start over because they lost their breeding stock. So now they're starting over with this, as opposed to some, well-developed dog. Go ahead, next. Okay, that's now the Doberman doing his work as a police dog. Go one more, please. All right, that's an American dog. Now there was a headpiece shot of a dog. I don't know if many of you probably have seen it in books. A dog by the name of Favorit von Königstag. It was supposedly a profile of what the ideal male looked like, and it had level planes, parallel planes, decent underjaw. For males today, we even like to see more, but you can see the ideal headpiece was coming through with the parallel planes and the proportions of the muzzle equaling the size of the back skull. And so that's what we have. Go on. Go ahead. They were obviously, we know they were used in World War II. They're performance dogs. Go ahead. And they were used in Southeast Asia. Go on. The devil dogs in Southeast Asia, the raiders. Go. All right. We know about the War Memorial, which is coming up. Here it is. What was that? Was it 20 or 25 years ago? We had the War Memorial here at one of our nationals, or one of the models, for which I don't know where that is, but that was, I think that the club had something to do with that. Yeah. All right, go on. Okay, that dog is Blank van Darmstadt, and I'm pretty sure that was the sire of Dictator von Glenkugel. Go on, next one. And there he is. Yeah, Blank was Dictator's sire. And I want you to check one thing as you're looking at these dogs in this period. Look at their fronts. They may have nice shoulder layback, but if you look at, they're kind of looking like they're terrier fronted. Now, Dictator is considered one of our greats, right? And he had a great record, but look at his front. I'm going to point something out to you. In 1938, they rewrote the standard, and the standard called for a 95 to a 90 degree to 110. Well, that looks like 110 to me. And I think if the breeders, if they can get away with 110, that's what they were getting. Go on. And that's is that Ferry von Ruffhausen? Yeah, he was born in 37. In 39, he went best of breed at Westminster. And again, he was a German import, and the judge couldn't even put his hands on him. He was a tough dog. The only people who could put their hands on him were the handlers. And go ahead, but he was a beautiful dog. All right, you have Frieda von Friedenwald. Okay, this is now the end of 1940 and end of World War II. This is the stock that Germany had. You know, again, Germany had been defeated. Germany had lost their breeding stock. They had to start over. Go ahead. I mean, that's what they had to start with. Go on. Again, that was what Germany started with. That's the kind of breeding stock they had at the end of World War II. Next. All right. Is that Storm? Okay. Now, you know, Storm went best in show at Westminster, what, 51 and 52. And his, again, look at his front. It's still 1952. He was born before 1953. And his owner was one of the madmen on Madison Avenue, an advertiser. And he was shown 25 times, and he was well advertised, and he ended up being on the front of Time magazine and helped make the Doberman very popular in the 1950s. In fact, if you look at all our porcelain, and if you see a porcelain statue of a dog, that was that owner, and I think he's copyrighted it, because you'll never see another kind of any other shape other than that dog shaped in a porcelain. Now, there's all kinds of statues and bronze statues and stuff. I don't think there's anything but a porcelain statue of Rancho Adobe Storm. Now, he made the Doberman very popular, but in 1953, next, 1953, that's Sultana von Marienburg. In 1953, they changed the standard again. This time, they called for a 90-degree angle in the front. And so now they're really shooting for the moon, because on a short back dog, a 90-degree angle, you're making it, we know how hard it is, right? It's a really impossible, biomechanically impossible feat, but we shoot for it. Sultana was the #1 dog in the mid-60s and lost in the breed and didn't make it to the group. And the handler cried on the side of I think what, 3rd Avenue, 7th Avenue. Go ahead, next. Okay, this is Sunhawk. This dog was born in 1973. Remember I said the standard was changed in 53 and called for the 90-degree angle. The exciting thing about Sunhawk was, first of all, you had a dog with a arched neck that went into smooth shoulders, square, hard top line, with the ability to stand over himself. That's one of the most exciting things about him. And you know, of course, he was very famous. Mary Rogers had demand for his puppies all over the world, sent them all over the world, including to Europe, Germany, Holland, and South America. Keep that in mind, because there's going to be a quiz. Go on to the next. Here's Electra's Windwalker, okay? We all know that Windwalker's in our pedigree. He was a great sire. I think at one point when I was reading through the magazines, he had sired 95 champions through live breedings. I don't know, maybe he's done more with some of the semen, but there was 95 champions with live breedings. And of course, he was the sire of Royal Tutor's Wild as the Wind, Indy, who won Westminster in 1989. Go ahead. There's Brunswick's Kryptonite, who is our winningest Doberman ever with 124 best show. And he also was a good sire. And I think he won the national 3 times. Yeah. Go on. And is that Cactus Cash? Yeah. Now, as you know, Cactus Cash was not special, but he was prepotent for producing the front, a decent front with an upper arm and lay back a shoulder. And breeders went to him in the 90s to get that. And he was prepotent for producing it. And I think he's got an untouchable record of over 150 champions, both live breedings and semen. And he features prominently in many of the pedigrees today. Go ahead. That's Agador. It was owned, bred, and handled by its owner, Linda Krukar, a longtime member of the Doberman, the DPCA. Go on. Okay, there's Fifi. Now, I want to make a point. Remember I said Mary Rogers sent Sunhawk puppies all over the world, including South America? Well, you guys all remember, well, many of you do remember, when Lex Luthor came to our shores. If you looked at his pedigree, Sunhawk was in there 6 times, 3 times on both sides of the pedigree. And Fifi was a great-granddaughter of Lex Luthor. And of course, Fifi has the record for winning the national 4 times. One other thing I got to talk about, and that is the Doberman temperament. We know that that it started out as a very sharp dog, and the breeders needed to tone it down because we live in a less and less agrarian society, and it's more suburban and urban. You just can't have a dog that's that amped. I mean, I know that the old handlers, they used to fire up their males by facing them off against each other, growling. And if there was a bitch in season floating around, it was a meltdown. And that's how they got them to show. And in one instance, Vic Montleone, I don't know if you remember, but if you read Joanna Walker's book, he wrote a chapter in it, and he was a dear friend of mine, told me about a dog that when he went on up and back, he snapped at every male Doberman in the line. And I said, oh, yeah. Well, sure enough, Mary Rogers came to visit me one day, and she brought the tape. And there it was, Marienburg's Red Baron on the up and back, and I swear to you, he snapped at every single male to let him know that he was in charge. We can't have dogs like that. However, we still expect our Dobermans to be sensible. We still, and our development of their temperament, we want them to recognize, where danger and friend, the people who are our enemy and who are our friends. We expect them to be able to discriminate. And we still have the whack test, right? And we expect that if danger is presented by that decoy, they'll go out there, and to borrow a line from The Lord of the Rings, you shall not pass, right? That's what we expect of our dogs, even though we don't want them snapping at everything that comes by. Anyway, that's my presentation. Everybody, thank you for your attention.
I never had support here.
Okay.
As high as it can be on a short girl.
Yeah, towards your left.
Thanks.
You got it. Thank you.
That was really, really, really good. And just to talk about what he said, one thing that we always start with in judges education is when we talk about the standard and how to judge Dobermans, is that everything is according to the deviation, except temperament. There is no deviation in temperament. If a dog backs away, leans against the handler or exhibitor, shies away from the judge, out of the ribbons. We cannot deviate from the temperament. So let's go on. Excuse me, but I don't usually do the entire thing. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to have help from Doug Jensen. Lita had to go. They had some problems over at the wine tasting, so she had to leave. So thankfully, Doug Jensen is here, and he used to be the head of Judges Ed and was on Judges Ed as well, and has been our presenter also. So I'm going to do a portion of it and then turn it over to Doug. So let's see what's first. Okay, proportions. So everything in the Doberman is balance. We're medium everything. We are, when you talk about the standard, it says we are a medium breed. Now, the reason why we talk about being a medium breed, because we probably think of our dogs as large, but in the working group, there's the Great Dane, there's the Mastiff, there's the Anatolian. Those are large breeds. We're the medium breed in the working group, so we might think of our dogs as large breed, or you go and you get large breed dog food, but they're actually, according to the working group, a medium breed. And if anything sticks out, it's wrong. Everything is in balance. So the front is in balance, the rear is in balance, head, angles, everything is balanced. And so that's when we talk about proportions. Now, here you can see we have a 45-degree angle in the front that hits a 90 degrees. So we have 45, 45 that hits 90. Same in the rear. 45, 45 hits a 90-degree angle. Now, the reason why we are like that is because it allows us to stand solid on the front with the front underneath of us and solid on the rear with the rear underneath of us. So let's say you look at a German Shepherd. A German Shepherd is 90 in the front and 120 in the rear, because we know the way that the rear is extended in the German Shepherd. And that is what makes us balanced and standing underneath of us, is that 90-degree angle. And then we, as Doug will get into movement, we move like that too. We move like we stand. That's why we're balanced with those beautiful proportions. T-shirts this year, you know, the first year we did It's Hip to Be Square, and then last year we did the balancing act, body and mind, and then this year we're talking angles at the Judges Education Seminar. So anyway, next. Oh, and then if you want to talk about the angle of the tail too, it's a 30 degrees, slightly sloping croup. Okay, you can see square here. So we talk about 50%. 50% from the top of the withers to the elbow, and then 50 from the elbow to the ground. It's all imbalanced, it's square. Boy, it looks weird from here. I guess it probably looks square from up in the front. And then here, is this a quiz? I'm gonna have to. Okay, it's just showing you examples of being square. Okay, next. Oh, yeah. Okay, here's a portions quiz. So just look for yourself and see which one you think is the most square. Okay, everybody have their answer? Okay, show the next slide. There you can see. High on leg, long, square. And then the neck. The neck should flow into the shoulder. It shouldn't be forward of the shoulder like this. The shoulder shouldn't be like this with the neck coming out of the shoulders. So here you can see a U-neck, which you can, a lot of people when they bait their dog, their dogs bait back like this, and they have this U-neck, which you can see like the curve in the front of it. And I'm like, don't you know your dog has a U-neck? Don't bait them like that. Bait them like this and it'll hide that at least. And then a stovepipe, so the stovepipe is forward of the shoulder
and long and doesn't flow into the shoulder. So you can see the correct neck, the way that it flows in, and the difference between the stovepipe and the U-neck. Okay, croup and tail, Topline, croup, and tail. So as many of you know, we're constantly having an issue with gay tails. So the reason why the tails are gay is because they have a flat croup. So they have a flat croup, the tail is set up here instead of down here. Generally, if they have a slightly sloping croup and the tail is set at 90 degrees, it's like this. If the croup is flat and the tail is up here, it usually goes like this. And so then we like that level back, not a sloping back. The funny thing is that like the boxer standard says slightly sloping, but we know that the boxers are more accepting of a sloping top line than we are. Our standard also says slightly sloping, but we don't really want it to slope because usually they have more angle in the rear if their top line is sloping that much. So we like it to be like just a little slightly sloping, and then when they move, it levels out and is totally level. We like them to move as they stand. So the top line, shoulders underneath, rear following through with a good push off the rear. You can see the pads as they move away. That's what we like. So you can see here, too high of a tail, roach back, soft back, low tail set, and then too sloped of a top line. And then this beautiful picture up there in the corner is what we really want to see. That's correct. Okay? Top line quiz. And then the answer? Oh, apparently there isn't one. And I can't. Okay, go back and I can't see it from.
That one did not answer it.
Yeah, so you can see dog B is actually, that's beautiful. Dog D is pretty good too. I like dog D. The first one is, it looks like two squished together and the neck isn't quite right. The needs more angle in the rear. It's almost too short. And then the dog C is sloping, has a little bit of a dip in the chop line there. Okay, next. Okay, fronts. I feel like I need to just take this with me. Sorry. So you can see this beautiful correct front here. Nice angle in the front, good layback of shoulder, good layback of upper arm, and then the pigeon chest. So pigeon chest, when you examine a dog and you put your hands on its front, you can feel the bone out here. It's like you pull your hand down, there's a protruding bone and then nothing underneath. They should really look like, their front should look like a ball. All nice, like you could put, if you put a ball under the correct one right there, just look at the front and imagine that as a round ball. Now you look at the straight short upper arm, is that a round ball? No. The pigeon chest, is that a round ball in there? No. Lacking depth and fill. And then there's the correct one as well. When you stand as a judge and you stand and you look straight down the line of Dobermans, you can see like all of them from straight on, the fill underneath of the front and the elbows set close in. And then there's other ones that'll be like hollow in the front. And it really stands out. That's a really good way to look at dogs. So anyway, next. Underline. So if the herring gut, or some people call it wasp waisted, that's like they don't have the length of the rib cage to a beautiful short loin that creates a beautiful underline. So like this one has too little tuck up. The one in the center is too shallow. Looks way back too. And the one over there is too deep. And the one up on top is correct. We don't really see too many wasp-waisted or herring gut ones anymore. We used to see that a lot, like back in the 80s. 70s, 80s. But it's a beautiful flow, like it's all like we talked about balance. It's that beautiful flow, nothing looks out of place, a nice full body, poured into their skin. And that's what we want to see. Okay, next. Okay. Structure, fronts and rear. So apparently we have the rears in real life and the fronts. So the first one is correct. And see the fill underneath in the chest? And then the toed out, and you can see that there isn't any depth there. Elbows out, so you're looking at the dogs still from the front, and you look at them, down the line, and you're seeing the one standing there like this, or their legs are toeing in, or their knuckles are bent over. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're baiting their dogs forward, and the knuckles are bending over. And I always go up to them and I say, don't bait them that far forward because those knuckles are really showing. And then toeing out. Next. Hindquarters. So this one is correct up here in the corner. And then the next one is high hocks. We still have a lot of long hocks in our breed. That's something that I'd like to see us improve on, but we do the best we can. And this is straight angled, high tail set, over angulated like we talked about. So really, I probably need that pointer thing, but the toes should come down to the ischium. So the ischium is here, and the toes should be underneath here. So people overstretch their dogs too. So we would like for the toes to be up here, set right underneath with good angulation, and the toes should be here underneath of their rear end. Yeah, there we go. This one just has a high tail, but a little bit closer to here. This one is straight. Oh, this one? Okay. Yeah. So if you look straight down here, that's where the toes are. Straight here, overangulated. This one is just a high tail set, which you can see, flat croup, high tail. This is kind of rounded over the croup, no angulation. This is actually, like, if you would look at the angle here, it just is not 45 to 45. And then this is the top view. Nice fill, short loin. Usually, I don't know if we're going to hit loin on here. Next, let's see if it's there. Okay, this is feet. So when we talk about the loin, which the loin is right here, if they have a long loin, they're going to have a short rib cage. So the loin is important because that is what holds the top line. That is what helps them move on a dime. If it's long, then they can't run all day. It's like having a weak back. And usually they're sway backed when they have a long loin, or they have a dip in their back, because they don't have that length of rib cage and the short loin to support the top line. So that's why it's important. So when I judge, I will put my hand right here. And the loin should be about one of my hands. That's how long the loin should be. Okay, next. Doug, do you want to take over from here? Thank you, everybody. Okay.
It would be a point.
This one.
Good. All right.
Oh, no, you got the clip. Here we go. Let's put this up here. And don't wander away without this.
Okay.
Put it in the pile.
Okay. All right. I'm pleased to fill in with this. I used to be in charge of judges' education and started in the early 70s with Frank and Peggy and DiNardo's and everything. I've been involved with this a long time, and most of those pictures you've seen of those dogs, I bred to most of those dogs, and some of those dogs were so aggressive you couldn't take them in the ring. I had some of those dogs that were like that, but we have, like Fran said, we've moved to a society that doesn't accept that. So I'm going to explain. I don't know the format here, the film or the slides, because I haven't seen them, but the head characteristics. When you look at it, all of you, when you look at the dog, you all know when you see a nice head. We're not a head breed, but that's the first thing you see in the morning. So we can't say, oh, you have to have a great head, but we have to have everything exactly in balance. That's what our standard says. I'm not going to go over the standard. You all know the standards in your hand. I'm in charge of Judge's Ed, so all of those standards I send hundreds of those out a year. All right, we have a blunt wedge. What does that mean? When you look at it from the side, when you look at it from the front, that's what it says, a blunt wedge. Equal parallel planes. They have to be equal. That's what you get when you look at the dog. The ears cropped in high set. I was involved with the standard before we changed the standard to what it says now, and it used to say uncropped ears shall not be penalized. We fought hard to get that out of our standard, so you have to understand that, because now our standard says ears cropped and high set. That means when the top of the ear, and I judge in foreign countries, so they don't have cropped ears, the ears have to set high enough on the head that they don't look like they're set on the side of the head. So that's what the ears cropped and high set means. Strong muzzle with a good underjaw. You'll hear a lot of people comment on the fact that we need more underjaw. I want to express to you that I think that our heads have to be balanced enough that you have an appearance of an underjaw, but not too much of an underjaw. If you don't know, I sculpt. I mean, the bronze work over there is mine, and I can do absolutely anything with clay, anything. I can put any kind of underjaw you want on a dog and cast it that way. But you put more underjaw on it than you should, it distorts everything. So everything has to be in balance. Yes, we would like to have a good underjaw. Why do we want to have a good underjaw? So when they bite the guy that's coming after you, they tear their leg off. You know, they have to have an underjaw to hold the bite. I want to talk a little bit about, we talk about the blunt wedge, the long and dry, resembling a front, I've said that. The fill under the eye. We always want a good fill under the eye when we look at that. You have to understand what the fill under the eye is. Those are the teeth. That's what gives you the fill under the eye. You have to have good dentation up in underneath the eye to get fill under the eye. If you don't have good dentation, you don't have good fill under the eye. When I'm judging, if I look at a dog and they don't have good fill under the eye, I can almost guarantee you when I open the mouth, they're not going to have good dentation in the back of their mouth, because that's what gives the fill under the eye. That's something to remember if you're planning to judge to look for. The details of the head, long, dry, blunt wedge. You can look at those and you can see that. If you get too much underjaw, it looks like you got too much head on the dog. We want every part of this dog balanced, nothing out of the ordinary. When you look at it, when you're in a ring and you got 10 dogs, and let's say they're top 20 dogs, or 10 of the top 20 dogs, they all should look as balanced as possible. So when you look at the head and the detail of the head, you're going to see minor changes, and that's all they should be, is minor changes. So you look at the first dog, the second, third, you decide what you want when you look at that dog, as close to the standard as you can get. It's right in your book. You have to look at this hundreds and hundreds of times. Okay, go ahead. Okay, those are the shapes. The blunt wedge front, and if you see from the front, it gradually moves to the base of the ear in an unbroken line. You'll see a lot of judges do this because we've taught this over the years. When you pick that head up, you put your hand on the side of the head this way, you put your hand on the side of this way, and it should feel like a blunt wedge. It shouldn't, you know, that if you get a snipey nose, when you pick the head up, you're like this. You know, if you have a blunt wedge, it's like this, and it's like this. And it's very easy to feel. You know, what judges do, and you know, I've taught this so many times that you got to say, when you look at the dog, what does your eye see? The next thing you do, the reason the judge goes over the dog, is to justify what their eye sees. Do I feel what my eye sees? It's all, what do you see? I'm a visual person, you know, so I look at that dog and I just have to justify, what do I see and how do I feel it? If it doesn't feel like I see, something's wrong. So that's why you look at the dog, you go over the dog, and you step back, because you have to confirm what you have just felt. Okay. That's the shape details. You have an incorrect and a correct, and you can see from the lip and the jaw how that comes out, why that's incorrect. If you put your hands on that, it won't feel like a blunt wedge. There's a space in between there. You should feel no space when you feel that. And the correct one on the left, if you put your hands on that, it's going to feel that on the side, and it's going to feel that on the top. Good. Okay, eyes. Moderately set, vigorous, energetic, and expression. Like I said, we get up in the morning, that's the first thing we see. We want a dog with almond-shaped eyes. Over the years, we've fought this, every breed does. We get round eyes. Very seldom do you get too small of an eye, but you'll get too big of an eye. You'll get different colors in the eye. Those are all genetic things that we breed. So you want a moderately set, not real deep, because they gotta be able to see. And they have to be vigorous. When you look at a dog, you can tell. I mean, everybody can do that. You look at your dog, and you can tell if something's wrong with your dog just by looking in their eyes. You can do that with any dog. So you can see the eyes give the expression of the dog. That's what we're looking for. And we want deep colored eyes. Now, I've been fortunate to have all 4 colors, finished all 4 colors in our breed. And you want dark eyes in every color. Fawn's dark, blue's dark, everything dark. So you don't want, I've always heard this, you can have a lighter eye in a red. You want as dark an eye in the red as you can get, okay? You don't want a black eye, but you want a dark red. Okay. Here are our eyes. Okay, the iris, uniform color ranging from medium to the darkest brown, so on and so on. There you can see go back to that. There you can see a fawn dog with a dark eye. That's what you want. You have a red. You have another fawn down there. So color shouldn't make any difference to us when we judge, but it does, because visually, again, a fawn dog's going to look different in the ring than a black dog. They're going to look a different size because your eye doesn't adjust to that all the time. So you have to do this enough to know. Okay? There's your quiz. Based on the standard, what do you see? A, B, C, or D? Okay, go to the next slide. And I'm not going to go over those. You can see that. Your own eye sees that. Okay, the ears. Normally cropped and carried upright. There are so many, that's why we have a system in place now in the DPCA where we're mentoring veterinarians to crop our dogs. A good cropper is worth $1 million if you can find them. Not $1 million, because we don't have $1 million, but you know what I mean. They have to be cropped, carried correctly, and if they're not, you don't get the same look in the dog. This is the breed we want. And I tell people, if you don't want a cropped dog, don't get a Doberman, because we're a cropped breed. I love to see like the dog on the far right, that's head. The ears are carried at the top of the head. That's what I said. You don't want them cropped too low, or you don't. That's not cropped. That's genetic. But you crop them so they carry upright. It's level at the top of the skull, and it's a breed-defining characteristic. If you look at the breed, anybody can look at it, just a profile of Doberman, and they know it's a Doberman, and this is why. Okay? Next. Muzzle and cheeks. Like I said, you can put as much muzzle on the dog as you want in clay and cast it, or I don't cast them that way because they're wrong, but they'll give you the appearance that something's wrong with the muzzle or with the head if you have too much muzzle. So you have to have every single thing in balance. Same with the cheeks. Dogs get cheeky, and that has to do with dentation again. So if you have some cheekiness in a dog, I would start looking at your jaws and your teeth to see if you've bred something you shouldn't have in there. Because if you get a dog that's real cheeky, you've probably got some dentation problems. But the dog on the left, that's the tilt of the head's a little bit down too far. Like Vicki said when Vicki didn't want to listen to me. If you, when I used to deal with Frank, you people don't know Frank Grover, but he was a very cherished friend of mine. And he always said to me, I always like to say, oh, that dog's so smooth. And he'd say, smooth is not in our standard. And it's not in our standard. So if you brought a dog and he looked at it, he'd say, put the head down. He didn't mean down, he meant level. I teach lots of classes to all breed people, and I always say, when you're showing your dog, your head should be level. It shouldn't be looking up at you, because you get a U-neck. Even if your dog doesn't have a U-neck, it'll develop a vision of a U-neck if its head's too high. If the head's down too far, it throws the whole neck off. We see handlers do this all the time. They bait their dog clear down and their head comes clear over. That's not correct. It may look showy, but it's not what our breed is. And as a judge, you have to be able to standardize that dog and say, what does the breed standard say? Okay, next. Okay, there you go. Your planes. Everything has to be in line. If you get this coming down compared to this, everything has to be balanced, and you should feel it, you should see it, you should feel it. That's when, as a judge, you look at the profile, why do you come to the front? You come to the front for exactly what I've said. So you can look at that from the front. Is that a blunt wedge? Does the neck from the under jaw flow into the front? The post-sternum, you should see it, you should feel it. It shouldn't be pigeon, but you should feel it. When I do evaluations of puppies at 8 weeks, and some of you people have been in here, I've done your puppies. What you have at 8 weeks is what you have as an adult. So when I set an 8-week-old puppy up for somebody and go over that, and I put my finger on that post-sternum and there's none there, I say it's not going to be there. So you're not going to show that puppy because it's not coming. The same with the head. If they go, oh, that'll develop. No, it's not going to develop. It's genetically bred. We breed that. Okay? There's your quiz. That should be easy for you to look at and visually see what you want, A, B, C, or D. You should say, what is the most pleasant? What meets our standard? What is balanced? It's all about balance. Okay? You don't get out of here unless you pass the quiz, by the way. Next.
So what was the answer?
We're not telling you the answer. You should know the answer.
I do, but I'm just curious.
That's easy to see.
Yes.
Okay? Nose color. Solid black, dark brown and reds, dark gray, or blue Dark hands on fawns. The darker you get, the better. Never forget that. The darker you get, the better. It's not going to be too dark. Lips. Lying close to the jaw. We have dogs with lots of loose lips. That's part of our breeding problem. It's not a problem, but it's part of what we deal with. We want our lips close and tight to the jaw. You can't change that. It's genetic. You breed for it. A good handler cheats on that constantly. You already know you pay. If you're paying a handler, you already know they can fix that. As a judge, I already know they're fixing it, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay? Full and powerful, well filled under the eyes. We've talked about that, why they're filled under the eyes. There you go, your choice, A, B, C, or D. Okay? All right, teeth. I wish Vicki was here because I need to tell her something. We have 42 teeth. How many people know how many human teeth you have? 32. Dogs have 42. We have more teeth in our dogs than we have in our own mouth. Peggy Adamson she was always referred to as a tooth fairy. And I want to share this story with you. She judged the national one year, and she was a perfect person. There's not a thing wrong with her except she was a little crazy. And she said, "Oh, I want to make sure my dogs are the right height, So she put a mark on her dress, 28 inches tall. She put a mark on her dress. So I'm talking to her afterward, and she said, "Oh my God, I tell you, I was so frustrated because the more I judged in the ring, those dogs just kept getting taller and taller and taller, while their skirt kept going down and down and down." So when Vicki says, "Well, the loin should be my hand," her hand's going to get smaller as she gets bigger, so she's going to have that same problem. All right, 42 teeth. We have to have a scissor bite. What's a scissor bite? You all know what a scissor bite. We have a disqualifying fault in our breed if you don't have a scissor bite, and a scissor bite is a scissor bite. You have to learn to count teeth in sections. You got a few seconds to look at that mouth. You don't have an hour. And she used to open that mouth forever. You could move in there, but that. And I've been judging since before '89. I've been judging since '89. We always opened our own mouths. Well, AKC said, "Oh no, that's not good. Let the handler open their mouth." I really don't care. I always use that part of my temperament test when I'd open a mouth, but I let the handlers do it. Teeth strongly developed in white. Why are they white? If they're not white, you have a problem. You have some type of infection as a young dog or something. That doesn't disqualify the dog if they're not white, but there's a reason for it. Inside, upper incisors, true scissor bite, 42 correctly placed, 22 in the lower, 20 in the upper. Distempered teeth shall not be penalized. Right there it says. Disqualifying faults. You have to know that. It's not an option. Overshot more than 3/16 and undershot more than an 1/8. Now, can you measure it? No. You can't measure that when you're in the ring as a judge. You have to know that. And it's hard to find a dog that's overshot or undershot to even know. Somebody has an overshot dog, they're not going to say, "Oh, come here, I want to show you my overshot dog." They don't do that. So it's hard to find those dogs. So you have to become aware of what to look for, okay? The placement. There's a correct mouth on the top and the incorrect on the bottom. So you can see a level, undershot, and an overshot. Lots of breeds call for their mouths. Ours calls for a scissor bite. And that is a true scissor bite. And the reason for that? Same reason. When he rips the guy's leg off, you want him to have a good bite on that guy's leg. Okay? There's your teeth exam. You measure or you count those in groups. You have to learn to count them in groups when you look at those. And I'll point this out. When I say fill under the eyes, here's what I'm talking about. If you don't have good molars back in here, you're not going to have good fill under the eye. You have to have good molars. Okay? Movement. Dog has to get from one place to the other. I have a dog that's moving. All my other sculptures are all still play. I have a dog that's moving now. I worked a long time to make sure that was what it was. So here's what we got. Here's the center. I want you to remember this because I'll talk about it in a minute. Here we go. See this right here. You want this dog to reach to the nose or past. You don't want him to come out here and hit this right here. Whoops, you went back. Oh, I'm sorry. So here, you want this to extend. Extend. When your dog moves, all 4 feet are off the ground. Now, you don't believe that, but if you look at a still, or you took a video and still it, at one point, all 4 feet are off the ground. Because where this foot lands here. As soon as this foot hits here, this one's pushing. And I'll tell you that I believe the only reason we have front feet on a Doberman is to keep them from falling on their nose. Because the back feet do all the work. These feet do not pull. They do not pull. The dog pushes with their back leg and the front gets out of the way. It gets out of the way. So this right here is very important. Those are what I call, well, not I, they're called footfalls. Where does the foot fall under the dog? When the dog goes around, does this foot overreach? Does it go beyond this foot? Or is there a space between here and they're underreaching? And it's very easy to see in dogs. When they're going around, it's very easy to see a space right here or an overreach. You don't see this much except if they're short. You don't see this because they're all pushing or else they're going to fall down. Okay, next slide. Here's your movement right here. This is what we talked about. You put a triangle right here. You see these feet? Where one picks up, the other one lands. This is going to extend to the point that the back foot pushes up, and you're going to see 4 pads. Every breed, I don't care what breed it is, you see pads coming up. On the down and back, that's what you're looking for. There's a lot of things, but you're looking, in the movement, you want those hocks to come just like, you want them to look like egg beaters. Boom, 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 boom. And you want to see those pads coming up on each foot. When the dog comes back to you, you want to see that dog stretching to hit a center line. That's why you want your dogs, when you judge, to move down and back on a straight line. Because you want them to follow that line because their front feet are going to come toward that center line. They're not going to come like this to the center line. They're going to come like this to the center line. The fill under the elbow, there's a flatness. When you fill your dog, there's a flatness underneath there. That's so the elbow can clear. The elbow has to clear. The rib cage is behind that and the expansion, but that leg has to clear. The first thing that happens on movement on a dog, when you say, okay, take your dog down and back, the first thing that dog's going to do, and if they don't do it, it's incorrect, their head is going to go down. It's never going to go up. You see handlers bring their dog's head up, they're not going to be able to move. Every dog's head has to go down. Think about it. When the dog reaches that front leg out to move, What happens? They lose all the support. Their head has to go down for balance. Not to the ground, but lowers a little bit. So they just have to lower that. So that head comes down a little bit. Here we go. Next slide. Here's what I'm talking about. Right here. Those dogs are going to reach for that center line. Reach for a center line. They don't want to be out over the center line. They reach for the center line. The people in here that have bred dogs long enough know that we have fought. We used to fight all these dogs toeing in. Well, then I don't see that. I see it a little bit, but not a lot. We used to have that a lot in our breed. And we've done a pretty good job to get rid of that. Here we go. Look at these feet. They're reaching. They're reaching. And the front foot almost turns out as it reaches. It never turns in or you have a problem. They turn slightly out. And that's hard to see visually unless, you look at it over and over and over and over and slow it down. We're so fortunate. Every one of you have a phone right now. You can video your dog and slow that down to frame by frame by frame to see that. Okay, next one. Rear movement. The front gets out of the way so this rear can push. This foot, right here, you see those pads, this foot is reaching up here and landing, this one's pushing. As soon as that head's turned here, you have a problem. That's why you want your head facing forward, because as soon as your head turns, the body turns. We all do that, okay? I will tell you that I find, let's go back a couple slides to where I said I wanted you to see that triangle. Right here, when I'm teaching people to show their dog, I say, okay, you take a coffee cup on a saucer and you put it right here in your mind. And when that dog goes around, you do not want that coffee to spill. And people go, oh, that's impossible. Look, it's not impossible. I teach all breeds. There are some breeds, like a Golden, they got a roll. A Doberman does not have a roll. When that dog moves, you could put a coffee cup on a saucer there and it's going to stay right there and it's not going to spill. It's not going to do this. So in your mind, you think, when you look at that top line, that dog moving around, does that top line stay steady enough that doesn't do this? Okay, obviously you're going to get some movement, but you're not going to get this movement and you're not going to get this movement. We have a lot of dogs, when you're judging, you take that dog around, they look like they're doing like this all the way around the ring. Or they look like they're doing this. And it's all based on structure. It's not based on anything else. Is the dog square? Is the front right? Is the rear right? That allows them to move like that. That's why movement is done after you do the examination. You look at the dog, you send the dog around to make sure that they're not lame. Then you do your examination, then you move your dog. As an option as a judge, you can do a triangle, you can do a down and back. I don't know, I change it. But anyway, I look at that. Is that coffee cup going to spill? And from the coffee cup, right here, straight down, that's where the feet should be landing. Your eye has to get this as you look, okay? Go ahead, hon. I appreciate Erica doing this. I used to do this in 1973, I was doing this. Okay. Coat. Smooth, short, hard. Okay, y'all go, oh, we don't have hard coats, we have soft coats. Well, that's semantics. Yes, we want a hard coat. We don't, when you feel your dog, they feel soft, but that's still that's a hard coat. I have had lots of dogs in my lifetime that have had harder coats than I wanted. But most of our dogs are very, we groom them and take care of them so that they're very smooth and soft. You have an invisible gray undercoat on the neck and it's permissible. The rest is sharply defined, blacks, reds, blues, and fawns. Dogs not any of the other allowed color. That's pretty plain. You have black, red, blue, and fawn. That's our colors. If you have, nobody else is going to show anything to you. I've been involved with AKC where I've gone out to look at litters. I've seen Doberman litters that were all black with no tan markings. All black. And they were purebred dogs. I knew genetically they had the pedigree. But there are no tan markings. And they, AKC, because if you know, when you register your dog, you have to say black and tan, red and tan, whatever. They were all black. So AKC said, go out and tell me what they should register those dogs as. I said, well, they can't register those as black and tan. There's no tan markings. Okay. Strong, and it has to be, the rust has to be defined. You know, we all like this thumbprint on our dog up here. On our heads, we all like it. We don't get it always, but we strive for that. I do. You get this tan marking, and then you get this little thumbprint. And the darker red, in my opinion, the darker red, the better. The darker coated fawns and blues. Our coats, so you understand that. Black is our dominant color, has the thickest hair, next is red. Our blues and fawns have fewer hair follicles on their body than the black and tans. Why do they lose their coat? They don't have, there's a lot of reasons, but they don't have as many hair follicles to keep reproducing. So you don't always get good coat color and quality in fawns and blues. There we go. Those are supposedly Doberman.
They called it a candy-coated Doberman.
Yeah. Oh, they'll sell those for millions. Okay. That's not our purpose as a breed club. Our breed, and we can fight this all we want. But I think it's better for us to promote the purebred Doberman than to fight everything else. I say fight what we have, and that's the 4 colors, and keep those 4 colors and promote them, okay? General appearance and type. Who's going to do that? Well, everybody left.
They all run away.
They run away. Medium size, males 26 to 28, females 24 square. The Doberman's muscular and powerful. Exactly that. They have to be strong. They can't be willowy. They have to be males, ideally 26 to 28. Most of our male dogs are going to be 28 to 28 and a half. We went through a period where we had some big dogs. And some of them were correct. I mean, physically correct, but oversized. When you breed, you have to be very specific on you know, it's all genetic. You're not going to get, you don't breed a big dog to a little bitch and get a medium-sized dog. That's not how it works. Elegant in appearance. They have to look elegant. What does that mean? That's exactly, you know, if you look at a person, you know whether they're well-groomed or not groomed. Elegance is the same thing. You know what elegance is when you see it. You can't learn how to do that. Okay. I used to write for several magazines, and I was a speech pathologist and a principal in a high school, so I did a lot of genetic work with kids, and I'm also have an art degree, so everything I do is visual. But you see things in your brain. One part of your brain sees one thing, the other part of your brain is used for speech. You can't do both. Now, when a judge is judging and they're doing a lot of talking, you're in trouble. Okay? Because your brain can't do both. They can't be talking on one side of the brain and visualizing on the other. The judges that I appreciate the most are the ones that give the least visual examples to do. If they say down and back, that's good. I don't want them to explain that down and back because they're not thinking and they're not visualizing. The less you talk as a judge, the better. Reflecting on great nobility. Our dogs they're absolutely noble. I've had these dogs for 55 years. There's nothing like them. They're noble. They stand out in a crowd. You go in, you go to a dog show. I don't care what breed you like, the Doberman stands out. That's the breed that stands out. And that's my opinion, but that's the way it is. That's the way it's going to be. They have to be noble, and they have to appear to be that. Okay? Proud carriage, watchful, determined, alert all the time. Some of that's temperament. All of it is what we express, we want our dogs to express. I know it's interesting, we have all of our nationals are big hotels. There was a time when you never put 2 males on an elevator. Never. Trust me. Now I see people getting 2 and 3 males on an elevator. I go, nah, I'll wait. I'll wait. Because our dogs, yeah, they should be tolerant, but they have to be determined and alert. If they don't stand next to you and worry about what's going on, they're not going to protect you. Okay, it's just not going to happen. They have to be that way all the time. And you know that when you have your dogs. When you come into any place and you look at a dog walks by, you already sense that as a person. Whether that dog's alert or whether they could care less. Okay? Fearless. I've had dogs that weren't fearless. I loved them, but they weren't fearless. And I didn't breed them. But you want your dogs, so I always remember people said, well, people use Doberman and German Shepherds for police dogs. Yeah, they do. The problem is with the German Shepherd, if that building's burning, they'll go right in there. The building's burning, the Doberman looks at you and goes, I ain't going in there. I'm not going in there. Okay? That's not that they're not fearless. They're smart enough not to do it. Our dogs are very smart. Even your dumb ones are very smart. Okay? Okay? Go ahead. They can do anything. When you say they can do anything, I have a hard time convincing me. I've had several ROMs, but I'm not great in obedience. They're smarter than I am, I guess, because I can get a dog to do about anything I want, and then in the obedience ring, they'll say, I ain't gonna do that today. Okay. So these people that train their dogs they're amazing to me. I'd love to watch it. There we go. That's our breed. Okay, next, I don't know what's next.
We're pretty much done.
Working attitude, aptitude, that's what our tests are. If you've gone through the way, we're testing those things. You can, they test those, the way's done. I've been overseas where they do the same thing and they train for weeks to get their dogs to do that. They train for weeks. I don't train my dogs, so, okay. All right. Any questions that I can answer? I was glad to fill in. I've done a lot of these, so I will. That when you looked at those slides and Fran put up kryptonite.
Doug, I'm sorry I missed the beginning, but did you talk about feet and how the importance of the type of feet?
We didn't. Well, we did that earlier in the presentation.
Well,
So
that's what I mean.
yeah.
I'll go back and I'll look at the presentation.
I was showing a bitch special when kryptonite came out, and I was judging. I was judging in Oklahoma, one of the first specialties that dog was ever in, and I gave him the breed, and that was before we had cell phones. And I went over to the I went over to the phone and I called the breeder that I co-owned this dog with that I was showing. I said, "We're done showing this bitch," and she goes, "Oh, what happened?" I said, we're breeding her. And she said, oh, no, she's not. I said, oh, yes, we are. I said, and I got the dog we're breeding her to. So anyway, we bred to the dog. And we took that bitch special I was showing, bred to that dog, finished every dog out of the litter. I mean, it was wonderful. But those are the things as breeders, and eventually if you're becoming a judge, that you have to center yourself on. What are you going to do to improve our breed? Not to improve what you're doing, but to improve our breed. It's not about improving us. It's about improving our breed. What's the best for our breed? I mean, I'm going to be dead and gone here pretty quick, and I've spent my absolutely entire life with these dogs. I mean, I've spent every dime I've made on these dogs. Man, I drug my wife to this national. So, again, I appreciate you being here.